right, guys, we are here back again. As you know, I'm a very unorthodox person, and a lot of times when I find people, I just kind of reach out to them, and not everybody takes me up on it. Some people do, and the ones that do always end up on. And I will say, like, TikTok is still relatively new for me. I've been doing it for about a year, and I've gotten, as you know, I've gotten some decent guests off of it. All the guests have been great. But I always kind of go through my feed and just try to see who's out there. And, I try to look through and go through all the, as they say, thirst trapping and all the other bullshit that's going on in the world, the distractions. And, there's the cute animal videos and whatever else that comes up. But there's always people struggling. There's always someone out there who's just hurting in one way or another. Doesn't have to be the same pain that I'm going through, just something. And I try to go through the rest of the videos. I try to figure out, whether they're doing it for attention or whatever, because there's that too, unfortunately. But I ran across this next person who, she was really showing real tears and talking about some serious issues. And I really got connected to her story and what she was going through. I reached out to her literally today, and we're becoming friendly and getting to know each other. And so there's a lot of similarities and we believe in a lot of the same things, and not that all necessarily matters, but in general, it's just nice to connect with somebody who also is out there going through their own shit and, lives in a different part of the country. And it's just like, hey, like, I'm going through it too. It really opens your eyes, and not that I didn't know that, but I didn't know she existed until, hours ago. And it's just nice to find people and help share their stories, because at the end of the day, it's about helping her, helping me, and helping anybody out there who listens to this. So anyway, sweetheart, you want to tell us your name, maybe a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Andrea. I am a 42-year-old mom to 3 boys and 2 fur children. I am a teacher, and I have been diagnosed with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, and a myriad of other issues I'm currently being tested for. But I've had some recent, apparently, like, people have really gotten into my newest video about me screaming about a doctor basically calling me fat, and that was the only reason why I was sick. So that's how you found me, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to battle against now, and I'm going to make it my life's mission to fix it.
Sure. Well, and again, I remember, and I think I talked about this before when someone was on here with lupus. I remember years ago there was a girl that was on America's Next Top Model, and she had lupus. And I remember, like, it being this really sad thing that she admitted to it, and she's like, I got lupus, and it was like, it's like, yeah, like, she's not going to be around much longer, like, she's going to be dead. And I'm like, oh, well, that's depressing. And I don't, like, I feel like now, and again, I really don't know, but I feel like now, like, when you hear lupus, it's not the same as it used to be, because I feel like when someone said they had lupus, I feel like they were going to go down a road of disintegrating, and they were going to eventually 100% die. But it seems like now people are living with it a lot longer and able to still make something of themselves and thrive.
Yeah, the life expectancy of somebody with lupus is the same as any other human being. It just means that you have to work a little bit harder.
Right.
With making sure that you have a good care team to help you be healthy for as long as possible. Means that you have to be really careful about everything that you do, all that you eat, the amount of time that you're in the sun, amount of time that you spend doing any type of physical exercise or anything physical, really. Because I look at it from the perspective of how many spoons am I going to use in my drawer doing this one thing, and am I going to be out of them if I don't, take it easy? I don't know if you know a whole lot about spoon theory,
yes,
but I learned about that a while ago when I kind of first started on my journey of discovering what all was wrong with me. And And it's been really great for me. Like, I've connected with other people that have kind of explained it to me. And now it's kind of like my thing where if I don't have enough spoons to get through the day, then I'm not going to be able to be the best teacher that I can be, to be the best mom that I can be. And so in my opinion, I have to like be very careful about what I spend my energy on. And that means real physical energy or even mental energy. And my job isn't easy. I work in special education and I work with kids with disabilities. And I had to take a job that I don't necessarily like because it's easier. So that's one of my biggest struggles right now. Yeah, I'm making decent money, but it's also very difficult to like be in a job where I'm not exactly doing the thing that I love the most because it's easier for my body.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking about it before we got on here, just being feeling like a burden. And you can also feel like a burden to yourself, not just to others, where it's like, like recently I told you I was going through all this stuff with my anxiety and depression. And, there was a period of time where I was like, am I sacrificing my other health, like my physical health, for my mental health? Even though my mental health is the most important thing to me, am I doing this the right way? Because I don't want to be on this medication that's causing me all these other issues. And I can only imagine what it'd be like I know, because I've had other jobs where I'm like, well, this is easier. Yeah, the money is a little better, but I don't like this. I don't want to do this, but it is more beneficial to me visually. And I think a lot of times we also get in our own way mentally because we're like, well, this works and I can't find a situation better than this. And so we settle. And I think because you and I also talked a lot about dating, and it's like a lot of times, like if we looked at it the same way, it's like, well, I don't want to settle for bullshit. Like I don't want to settle for just any person, especially now that as you and I get a little older, we're in the like middle part of our life or whatever you want to call it. It's like, yeah, I don't want to just settle for any woman. I want to find love. I want to find someone who actually appreciates me and adds value to me and to my life. And so, and again, we all have to make sacrifices and whatever, but I think it is hard when you have a disability, you have something that is, especially like with you and like with me, with my vision and mental health, like they fluctuate. You don't really know what any day is going to bring. And so like you try to prepare for you and all that. And some days it works, some days it doesn't. But I think it's all about trying to still find your happy place and trying to, so it's like maybe you're not where you want to be, but sometimes, like being spiritual and all that, like sometimes you have to just kind of follow the path and realize like what you're doing right now is going to hopefully lead to something better. And you needed to go through this to see the next thing. It's just like you had to, open one door to get to the next type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's funny what you said about settling. I feel like that a lot of times if you have like chronic illness or chronic pain or anything really that you're not a whole human, that sometimes you settle for things that you really shouldn't. And I did that for 20 plus years in my marriage. I settled for somebody that I thought was, there to take care of me, but I did all the caretaking. And then when I got really sick, it was no longer a good, happy relationship. And that's one of the things that lupus and RA have taken away from me, is that, I don't want to just settle for anybody that's just going to be there. I want it to be, somebody who actually cares, or somebody that's important, or, when you make vows with somebody and you say in sickness and in health, sometimes even after 20 years, it becomes a burden on somebody else. And I never want to feel like a burden, but I feel like a burden to myself all the time, like you said. Yeah. I definitely feel like that there are times where I just can't do this or I can't do that. And I have teenagers and they're constantly like, can we go do this or can we go do that? And sometimes it's just like, no, that's not going to happen today. Or I just don't have the capacity amount of spoons. And then like now I'm in a whole new world with dating now after being married for 21 years. and going through this with autoimmune, just figuring out who I am and what I want in my life, and not wanting to settle for that person that is going to be in my life. And then you also said something about like, if not now, then when. I kind of have a quote from Esther that is, perhaps you were created for such a time as this. And it's one of those things that I think about on a regular basis. Like, I'm not hugely spiritual, but I definitely was raised that way. Yeah. And when I think about that quote, it kind of gives me new life. It gives me new hope, because perhaps you were put on this planet for a purpose. You were put here for a reason. And I think about that all the time. I even had a plaque made so that I could hang it up in my bedroom and I can look at it. And anytime that I'm feeling like super low, because autoimmune really, like, depression is huge when it comes to like disease, and you don't really understand how low you can get, except for like when you're really in the middle of a flare and you're so incredibly exhausted and you don't want to be around other people and you're in so much pain. The only thing that you can think of is like, the only way to get it to go away would be to end it. I mean, that plays a huge component in, my life and other people with chronic illness and pain. And so I have to look at that and say, you're here for a reason. You don't always know what the reason is until you put yourself out there and you try to figure it out. Like, you have to be there to help other people through what you're going through. And there's so many great communities out there. It's just finding them or helping other people if you see that they're going through something. So I definitely feel like perhaps I was created for such a time as this. And so I have to continue to say that on a regular basis.
Yeah. And there is a lot of darkness that's going on in the world. Like, you look around and it's just, I don't care. Again, I don't care who you vote for. Because I don't vote. I avoid all of it. But like, I see how people treat each other because of it. I see just blatant, just ignorance, just on a daily basis, whether people don't want to hold doors open for people, or there's just no pleasantries whatsoever. And we're not even talking about all the murder and the death that just goes on and the destruction. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's kind of, some of us are being called to action to just be positive and be a guiding light. And though maybe not every day, I know you don't, I know I don't, every day I don't feel like being called to action. I don't want to get up and do my duty and try to smile and be like, hey guys, what's going on? Like, I don't want to do that shit because I'm worn out, I'm tired, I'm beat up. But I know somebody's got to do it. There's not, the problem is we seem to lose people all the time because they give up. Because they get consumed by whatever it is, and a lot of hopefully it's not their mental pain, because that usually ends up they're not here anymore, or they just can't be the person they want to be because something is prohibiting them from doing so. But like for me, I one of the things I've learned about myself is like, it's one thing to see people go through pain and say, hey, come on my show. But it's like, there's a lot of people out here crying. There's a lot of people doing shit for attention and all that. And, like for you, like when I saw you, I was like, man, like I felt like, what you were going through, what you were saying, I could feel like your true pain and what you were trying to get across. It's like, it doesn't matter, like it didn't even really matter how you were conveying yourself or not. It was just like you can feel the severity and just the realness that was coming out of you, and that's the type of shit that is missing in the world. Is like too many people are pretending to be other things, and too many people are afraid to show that. And I know maybe, like you said earlier, is like it may not be the best look for you because you're crying or whatever the fuck, but like you were being real, and so many people are afraid to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I was so angry in that moment, and I needed to vent in a place that was safe. And like, believe it or not, I felt like TikTok was safe at the time, which is just ridiculous. And because I didn't want to burden other people in my life with my quote unquote drama. And so for me, when I left my doctor's appointment for a doctor that I hadn't seen in a year, and he only had one set of labs on me from a year and a half ago. And he told me that basically all my issues were related to my weight. And I thought and I had a more than 30-minute conversation with this man about my issues. And he told me, your previous rheumatologist was placating you and just gave you medication so that you would stop asking, and that there's actually nothing wrong with you based off of your labs. And mind you, a year ago, I was on, a medication for weight loss, and it was the only medication in my entire life that has ever helped me. Not that I've always been a bigger person, but I've never been skinny. I'm athletic. I was a swimmer. I was in marching band. I was kind of nerdy, but I coached cross country. I coached swim team. It's one of those things that I've been physically active the majority of my life. And then when I started to feel bad is when I started to gain weight. And, it was one of those things that I wasn't expecting a doctor who I fully believe, because I have worked with people on the spectrum before, I fully believe that he was on the spectrum, and he's very, cut or dry, what it's supposed to be, and how, there is no gray area. It's only black and white. And he's only going based off of a year ago's blood work, but I've had 3 other doctors diagnose me. So, it's one of those things that for him to say all of that was just extremely upsetting, especially when I'm in a place right now where I don't feel great about my body, and I don't feel like that I'm where I want to be, especially after gaining weight from coming off the medication, and having him tell me that I'm crazy and that there's nothing wrong with me. And that's one of those things that I've experienced from a lot of doctors, that, they don't want to figure out what is wrong with the person. They just want to look at the blood work, or they just want to look at the this or that, and they're not willing to get into you as a whole human being. If I wake up every single day in excruciating pain for absolutely no reason, then it's only because I'm fat. No, I've been heavier than this and wasn't in this much pain. So I've been skinnier than this and I was in just as much pain. So it's one of those things where I don't understand why some doctors can just, say that. And it was really nice. Yesterday I went to my primary care, and she was like, I gravely disagree with him. He's absolutely wrong. And just to assure you, you do have the things that you say that you have. And the medications that you are on need to be titrated to help, meet you where you're at right now. And she's like, you're doing everything right. Don't allow his opinion of you to be, something that affects you.
Yeah.
And it's not the first doctor that has done that.
Sure.
So,
no, yeah. I mean, when I kind of hit bottom a month and a half ago with all the anxiety and stuff, it was because part of it was because when I was coming off this medication, I was already down on myself, because I'm in this position because of me. I'm trying to better myself. I know I'm doing it for the right reasons, but I know the reason why I'm anxious right now at this level is because I quit my medication cold turkey. So I know it's me. So I was already down on myself anyway. And then I go to the doctor and they're like, okay, they put me on a medication. Well, that medication was causing insomnia. So now I can't sleep. And then I go back to them a week later. I have full-blown anxiety. I can't sleep. I'm not eating. I'm a mess. And I'm like, look, I need you to care right now. It was like I felt like all they were doing was looking at their watch. And I'm like, I need you to just not just send me away. I don't want you to admit me either, type of thing. I just need you to really give a shit and give me some direction, because right now I feel really lost. And essentially she was just like, well, here's some Ativan, and good luck to you. Just hang in there. When the medication kicks in, we'll get back to this conversation in a month. Like, a month. You understand? I feel like I'm gonna die now. Like, and I know I was being, I was exaggerating because I was just in such bad mental pain and I couldn't sleep. But nonetheless, it's like, hey, I really, really need you to care. And so eventually I got a psychiatrist who sat down with me for like 2 hours, and we worked out a whole plan, and we set all this stuff up, and it meant everything to me. And I went into there feeling anxiety, not because of anything, just because I was just going through it. I left there feeling so much better, and I don't know if I've had anxiety since, or I've had very little anxiety since. And it's because she gave me something to believe in. She gave, she didn't just treat me like just who's next up on the docket here. Oh, it's TJ. Okay. He's the one with, let me read his file. Oh, that guy. Yeah. All right. Bring him in. And it's like, this woman sat down and talked to me. She cared about me. She at least treated me like she cared. And she made me feel comfortable. And it's like, I feel like, why else would you get into these type of jobs? Like, unless you give a shit about helping people, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure the money's all right, but like, why else would you do this? You can find jobs that pay better than this. You can find jobs that are more, fulfilling and thrilling in your own way. So why? The only way you should get into being a doctor or a nurse or a cop or a firefighter, like, it's literally to help people. Like, I don't know why else you would do these type of things and to protect. And so, yeah, and I've been there and that's just more of a recent thing. But I've had doctors, when I was nearly dying, they were like, no, he's got chicken pox. And they're like, and then eventually it was like, someone else was like, no, I don't think that's chicken pox. Like, your skin is not supposed to be like falling off. And it's like, oh, yeah. And so it's like, because at one point I had a disease called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. It's a high allergic reaction to medication. It's what caused the eye problem. And so like all my skin, hair, teeth, everything. And they sent me home just melting. And it was just like, hey, don't worry. Well, you'll be all right. And it's like, nope, he's not going to be all right. And it's like, that's the type of shit, and again, there, I don't want to besmirch like every doctor out there because there's some really good ones, but this happens too frequently, too regularly, where it's like they will just give you this half-assed diagnosis and they will give you whatever bullshit just to appease you and make you feel better at the end of the day. But it's like, look, I want to feel better physically and mentally, and I want to get to the root of the issue. I don't want you to just send me home and just to kind of make me feel good for the day. In your case, obviously they offended you and pissed you off, rightfully so. And it's like, and again, like, I don't know, as I wouldn't even want to say as a guy, but like as a person, like your whole thing is, I mean, I get it. When you're a doctor, you're making good money and, you see a lot of people, like, you don't necessarily have to try to appeal to everybody and not worry about hurting their feelings. But at the same time, it's like, why would you tell a woman that she's fat? And that's why that's why you're having these problems. Like that, like, even if that somehow was the problem, it's like, can you go about it in a better way? Because you're just going to hurt the person's feelings and you're going to make them feel worse about the situation.
Yeah. I mean, the other doctor that I see, like, I found a great practice that has definitely advocated for me. But they've grown really fast and they have a lot of patients, and my doctor doesn't live in the city that I live in anymore. And it's hard to go find somebody new. And I did try to find somebody new. And it was definitely one of those things where I went in and I was like, hey, these are all my issues. Can you help me with it? And they were like extremely overwhelmed with me and definitely have that like business personality when it comes to like treating the patient. And my other doctor, I feel like, is just, they don't want to treat you like you're part of a business. They want to treat you like you're a human being. And it's hard to find doctors like that. I have maybe had like 2 doctors in my whole life that have ever, treated me like a human being, not like, just another number. And that's really hard. And I know that when you're a doctor and you have a lot of patients and there's a lot of people that you have to take care of and you have your own personal stuff going on too, and that can definitely affect the way that you treat others. But in no way should you ever say, especially when you don't know the whole picture about somebody, that like it's purely their weight that's the problem.
Yeah.
I spoke with my primary about this yesterday, that she said you have a less than 1% chance of having a heart attack in the next 10 years. And because they have a scale that they use determined by my entire history being in their practice. And she was like, I don't know why he would say something like that to you, because he doesn't know the whole picture. And of course, it's one of those things where I felt like he was just basing it off of literally one interaction that we had a year and a half ago. And it's so incredibly disheartening as a person with like a chronic illness, or to be in pain like I am on a regular basis now, that there's just nobody out there that's willing to help. And it definitely weighs on you mentally. And then whenever you get into this like depressive state, or you're having anxiety, then for me at least, it leads to more and more pain. And it doesn't really matter like where I'm at. If I'm super depressed, or if I'm having a lot of anxiety about what's going on in my life, I mean, I'm going through a lot of stuff personally right now anyway, it just leads to more pain. Like your mental health is definitely connected to your body in that way. And it's like a domino effect, you know, like one thing is out of whack, then like your whole body is messed up. And it's one of those things that as patients and people who, you know, are paying people money to care for us, we should be able to have a right to say that's not okay, and you shouldn't be allowed to talk to me that way. But because they are quote unquote professionals and they have a degree in it, you have to be like, well, I'm going to take you at your word. What if I was one of those people that just left the office and was like, oh, I don't have lupus and I don't have rheumatoid arthritis, I'm just overweight. Okay, then I'm going to go and stop taking my medications that have been helping me. And I'm, you know, going to allow my disease to progress to a point that I can no longer function as a human being, but it's only because I'm overweight. So like, I think that when you're in a place where you have that much power as a physician, that you should definitely question how you speak to your patients about those issues, because I could have like decided to go out and off myself because of the way he talked to me. And that is not abiding by their oath of first do no harm. Yeah. Like that was not doing harm to me. That was very harmful.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I've had situations similar to that in relation to my mental health where, you know, they were supposed to help and they didn't. And it's like you do understand, like, if I wasn't more stable, like if I wasn't this stable of a person, I wasn't this confident in me and this strong, like I might just blow my head off right here. Like you do get like my mental health means everything to me, more than my vision, more than anything, like because it's the one thing that has kind of crippled me for life at times. And yeah, I'm like what you were saying, because like it all trickles down from the top, and your top is what? Your head, and your brain is out of whack. The rest of your body is useless. It's pointless. Like it's, I mean, and the only thing that's close to it is maybe your spinal cord as far as importance, but like your brain, man, and your heart obviously too, but your brain means so much. And when there's such a huge chemical imbalance, like life is just going to be unpleasant. And you could see things through a whole different lens. Like when I was going through this stuff, like I was looking at I said this many times now, but like I was looking at my life like it was on fire. And it didn't matter what it was. It was, I could have looked at my cat and be like, he's not that cute. Like I would have looked at anything and just turned it into a negative. And and when you're thinking like that, and you're just super depressed, you're super anxious, and you're not sleeping, and of course now that adding to the fact that now you're not eating, so you're getting no nutrition, you're getting nothing, you're just you're just like dwindling away, And
Mm-hmm.
it just continues to add to it. And yeah, if you're not, like, for you, if, some people need medication, some people don't, but the people who do, if you're not getting that and you're just going, yeah, well, I'm fat and I should just exercise and eat salad, and you do that and then you're getting worse, and you're like, because that's the thing, like for me, I think that's what made it worse for me, is that once I quit my medication, they put me on something else, and then that was causing worse effects. That's when I felt so lost, because I was like, well, I stepped so far off of this platform and I went further down this path and I committed to that path. And then I'm like, oh, that's the wrong path. I don't even know how to make it back. I took so many steps this way. How do I go back to where I was before? And
Yeah.
and that's when you feel so lost, because then again, you go to the doctors, you go to these people because they're the ones that are supposed to know better. They're the ones supposed to give you the answers, whether they're the ones you want or not. They're supposed to give you the answers where you're like, hey, yeah, how do I fix this? And they're just like, oh, you're just fat. Lose weight and that'll solve your issues. You're like,
Yeah.
seriously right now? For real?
Yeah. Yeah. Being skinny is the end to everyone's problem, said no skinny person ever. Like, I look at it from the perspective of, like, I was in a really great place weight wise at the beginning of the year. And then my insurance was like, oh, you don't need this medication. We're not going to cover it. So now I'm back up to almost the weight that I was when I lost all of the weight. And it's one of those things where it's like, I still had these issues a year ago when I was skinnier. So if I had these issues when I was skinny and I still have these issues when I'm fat, then like you have to understand that the weight is a symptom of the problem. It's not the problem. So that's one of the biggest things that bothers me the most about doctors just blanketing you with, oh, it's your weight. No, like it's a symptom of what is going on in my body that is causing me to be the way that I'm at. Like, it's not that it's the actual problem. It is a part of, along with everything else.
Yeah, I think. Look, we do have a huge problem with obesity in this country for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of times when people are trying, doctors and people are trying to help them, it's like, oh, you're fat shaming or all these things. I think a lot of that is idiocy. But yeah, I mean, again, for stuff like this is case by case. You go, and I think sometimes these doctors, they just, like I said, they just kind of read a little bit. They do a couple tests here and there, and they just go, boom, I solved it. You got this, and you're like, no, like. Mm-hmm. You're just coming into my life. You know a very small, blurry picture of what my life looks like, mm-hmm. and you're just telling me you can see everything in the picture, and it's like, no, how could you? I can't even see the whole thing, and I've been living it. Like you, yeah. So, no, but like I said, that's why it's so important for you to speak up, because it's like you may not impact the medical field. You may not change how people hire doctors or anything like that. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, you can help more people, because there are people who are in your shoes but feel way worse, way more lost. And they don't have a support system. They don't have anything. They're just like, mm-hmm. yeah, I have it. It doesn't have to be lupus. It could be anything. And they're just like, oh. So, because there are people who took what your doctor said and they took it literal, and they were like, yeah, it's because I'm fat. And maybe they hear your story and go, well, okay, that makes sense. And maybe you kind of get them back on the right track, because there are a lot of doctors, like I said, there are people who really believe everything they're told, especially by people who wear a lab coat and say, look, I went to school for this, so I know better than you. And you're like, yeah, I guess you do. And then, but like I say, like when I was a kid, my mom always told me, like, listen to the adults, because what they say goes, and what everything they say is right. And I'm like, I know now that's full of shit. I know she was just trying to get me to be a good kid, and just mm-hmm. get me to listen to the teachers and the, authority and all that, which I did. But mm-hmm. at the same time, I went through a lot of abuse because of adults, and I went through a lot of shit and it was like, oh no, adults they're shit. Like they don't know what they're talking about. I don't care what their profession is. I don't care how many years they went to school for it. They still lie. They still do the same things that everyone else does. It's just they scam, they cheat, not all of them, but a good mm-hmm. amount of them do. Like, and you realize, like, yeah, it's just being human, unfortunately, which is sad. But, mm-hmm. And that's why it's key for you or whoever, me, like, to be a good example of one of us. Like, and that's why I try to show the raw and unfiltered version of what it's like to be someone with mental health or a disability or whatever, because I don't see many people doing it. Not enough anyway, because it's like some people glorify some of it. Some people use it as like a freak show. Some people, there's many ways you can look at it. But like for me, it's like, no, there is good days. There's bad days. There's really sad days. And then there's just kind of the in-between days. And which is, there's the gray area. There's the rest of it. And it's like, this life is worth living. It's not all bad. It's just, I can't show you just the good or just the bad, because that's not real. It's not what it is. And, like I said, there's those doctors that happens to so many people. Take out lupus aside, and I know you know this, but it happens to so many damn people, unfortunately. That's why, like I said, I love having these conversations, because it opens people's minds, because there are people out there that go to their doctors and they really think that what their doctor tells them is always right. And, that's why I always say you should get a second and a third and a fourth opinion, especially when it comes to severe things. Like somebody says, hey, you should, get back surgery or something. Like for me with my eyes, I've been through so many doctors, and I finally found one that wants to try something on me. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm 36. I've been doing this for 32 years now. And I'm now finding somebody, like, why couldn't they have done this when I was 4? But it's like, no, that's not, my eyes have gotten way worse since then. Like, you put 32 more years of mileage on scarred tissue and scarred cornea. Like, it doesn't matter if I got poked in them, I got anything in my eye. It's just 32 more years of living and using them. So it's like, why am I finding a doctor now that can help me? It's frustrating, because so many doctors said they wouldn't even touch my good eye because they don't want me to put at risk what I have left. And it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But give me a solution. Well, here's a solution. We'll use your bad eye and we'll sew it shut, and then we'll make a little incision, and then I don't know what the other part they were going to do. And then, but there's like a 75% chance they'll get infected. Oh, okay, 75%. So that means at least 85% chance it's going to work. No, less than 50. Oh, fantastic. So I'm not doing that. So, and so you're just lost. You're just left with picking up the pieces. You got to live with it. They don't. They get paid and go home. They did their job, and you have to live with this just stressful, just darkness. And you're like, and then every day that you have a bad eye day, I'm sure every day you have like a flare up or something, when you're really going through it, you start to go like, not only is this my new normal, but like, am I dying? Like, can I handle this? Like, oh shit, I have kids. Like, I got to be strong for them. Like, they don't look at shit like that. They just leave you and go, good luck. And you're like,
I mean, like, I hate that has been your experience and that it's been 32 years. I know that for me, I definitely was able to find a decent doctor. It's just now finding the right specialist. And
sure.
I went a whole month this summer without any of my medications, just purely out of like financial issues, could not afford to pay for them. And I am just now trying to get back to where I was before, back on the medications. And, the side effects for the medications that I'm on for lupus and RA are like pretty bad. And I don't know anybody who would willingly take this medication on a regular basis, because it's supposed to have more benefit than not. But like, just because, like, that was the thing that bothered me the most about this doctor saying that they were placating me by putting me on methotrexate. And methotrexate is a low dose chemotherapy. Who would willingly put themselves on a low dose chemotherapy with all of the possible side effects of that? Like, I can never have kids again. Like, I have to make sure that I'm on birth control. Like, it can cause birth defects. Like, what woman in their right mind would ever decide that, oh, I want to take a medication that's going to make my hair fall out? Like, no woman ever is going to willingly say that that's exactly what I want from a doctor. But unfortunately, Like, that is the medication that I was put on. And for any doctor to say, oh, well, they were just making you happy by putting you on chemotherapy. Like, no, like, doctors don't make decisions like that. They don't put you on chemotherapy or like a low dose of like chemotherapy just because they, want to make you happy. Like, so that was the most laughable part about all of my situation. But it's one of those things where, I do like there's stuff every day. Like, I mean, normally when you get into your 40s, like, obviously you're going to start having issues with your joints and joint pain and stuff like that. But this is like on a different level of like pain, and it's like all over my body. It's not in just one place. And, it is controlled by medications. But like I said, I went a whole month without them, and I know exactly what life would be like without them. And I can't even, I don't want to go back there again, because I'm just now starting to get to a point where I actually feel somewhat normal. And I mean, I get the whole weight thing. Like, there is definitely an issue in this country with obesity, like you said, but not everybody is overweight because they gorge themselves on gallons and gallons of food. Like, I hardly eat, and I am the weight that I am. And it's one of those things that I don't know a whole lot of people that only drink water and coffee during the day, and I am that person. Like, I don't ever drink soda. Like, I don't do any of the things that, quote unquote, they say that fat people do. I just live my life normal. I eat healthy foods. I try to take care of my body as best as I can. But at some point, my body is working against me. And there's so many other factors involved in a human being than their weight. And I don't think that doctors should just be like, oh, she's just fat. That's the reason why she's got all these issues. No, like I said, it's a symptom of the main issue. And I will be honest, a lot of my issues started after I had COVID in 2020. And for a long time, I was a long hauler. And ever since then, that's when I got all my diagnosis. So I've been diagnosed with lupus and RA for about 2 years now. And all of it didn't really start at the level that it is now until after I had COVID. So a lot of other people that I've talked to that have experienced the same thing as me say that, it's very much like that whatever you had kind of like laying in wait, or that was, not that big of a deal, all of a sudden became like hyper, manifesting in your body because of that virus. And I fully believe that. I have, like I said, I've run 2 half marathons and multiple 5Ks and 10Ks, 15Ks. Like, I was actually training for a marathon before I got sick with COVID. And so it's one of those things where, like, I'm not, my problem isn't my weight. My problem is that I was born with genetics that gives me these autoimmune issues, or they were sparked by something else. And I know that trauma plays a huge role in your body and the way that you feel. And unfortunately, I've had trauma in my life, and I really and truly feel like maybe that heightened it. So it's one of those things. I'm not going to say that like that's the reason why I have it, but it's, it's one of those things that I feel like if you go into a doctor and you say, this is my history, can you, at least look at all of my records?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. They've been good otherwise. So, but no, I appreciate you sharing in your perspective. I think, like I said, it can help a lot of people, because there's many people, I think, in your shoes that we just, unfortunately, we just don't get to hear from. And a lot of people go silent. They're just out there and a lot of people can't find their voice, or they're trying to, and they don't know how to go about it. So they just take whatever life gives them, and they say, "Here you go." Like, this is, you're not going to speak up. You're not, because not everybody's a leader. Not everyone is a person who can vocalize what they're going through. It's just, they just do it. There's a lot of people in unhappy relationships, and I know a bunch of them, and they're just like, yeah, I'm not gonna, I'm not happy. I don't like this person, but I'm gonna stay because it's better off, because I don't, at least now I have someone kind of cares. I have someone who's there every night, and we may not love each other, but I have a disability. I can't drive. They drive, so there's that, or whatever. And it's just like, they just stay because it's better to them. It's better than the alternative of just being alone and making life even harder for themselves. And but I guess kind of to transition into that, because I don't want to go too long, but and again, I'm just asking if you want to share. Would you like to share anything a little bit about kind of transitioning into relationships, about your past relationship? Because there's a lot of women who have also unfortunately gone through abuse and in many forms.
Yeah. So I am currently not divorced, but desperately trying to earn my freedom from someone that unfortunately is bipolar. He's not taking care of his mental health, and he also had concussion syndrome, which I've heard you talk about on your podcast before. And just he was an alcoholic. And so living in a world where those were the issues, life was not easy. I did all the things that any other stay-at-home mom or wife would do. I did work, but it was one of those things that he wasn't always very nice to me. There was all different levels of abuse, and it's one of those things that I unfortunately had a father that was a narcissistic abuser, and I in turn found a significant other that also was the same way. And there's a lot to unpack there with like therapy and things like that. I'm a firm believer in therapy, and I have definitely tried to make sure that my mental health was taken care of. But I did find somebody just like my father. And I know that, trauma from childhood turned into trauma as an adult, and then feeling extremely trapped because at the end of our marriage, I did get very sick and was not really able to do all the things that I was able to do at the beginning of our marriage, and just feeling very much like being yelled at on a regular basis because I couldn't get out of bed, or being told that they're the reason why I have everything that I have, and threatening to kill himself if I leave him, and things like that. And that's not okay. And I didn't really fully understand the level of abuse that I had endured until I had left. And I was in a support group, and we were kind of going through and talking about what our support system was. And I'm going through and I'm thinking about all these relationships that I have had and lost because I was in a relationship with somebody that tried to keep me isolated. And I didn't fully understand how isolated I was until I was finally on my own and having to take care of 2 children on my own and try to provide for them. And then understanding, oh my God, I've been so incredibly isolated, even from my parents, from my family, because he was like, you don't need to see them. You don't need to be around them. They're not good for you. It's unhealthy. And so basically using my childhood trauma as another form of, abuse. And I eventually, and they say that usually right after you leave a relationship with that's when it becomes the most volatile. And I had to eventually get a protective order and bar him from my life completely, because he threatened to kill me, and he slashed some of my tires, and did a few other things that just were not okay. And I'm still fighting with the courts right now, trying to be released. Is the way that I look at it, is like earning my freedom from a person that was so incredibly harmful towards you. And, you know, trauma just causes all sorts of problems in your body, and you don't really realize it. And I was in therapy for a very long time, and she said, you know, like, a lot of your trauma is most likely related to, you know, all of your issues. Like, your autoimmune issues are very strongly related to trauma. So she suggested a lot of different therapies for me, and unfortunately they're all very expensive, but I've been trying to do all the things that I can on my own. And that's another thing. I just feel like that as a person who has gone through trauma or has mental health issues, or somebody who has, you know, any sort of health issue, chronic pain, whatever, that you have to do education on it. You have to do as much research as you possibly can about those issues and inform yourself. Figure out ways that you can help yourself, positive ways that you can do things for yourself, because you're, in the end, you live in your body every single day. A doctor can say all that they want about you, but in the end, you're the one that has to live in your body, and you know your body the best. And you have to do the things for yourself, like educate yourself, learn the things that you need to learn about your issues so that you can, you know, be the best you that you can be. Because sometimes doctors don't get it right because they don't have the whole picture, but you do. And so for me, going to therapy and doing some other things just have been really, really helpful. And I definitely have gotten involved with some organizations here locally that have been amazing. They helped me move into my house with my kids, and, you know, helped me get, you know, stable. And if it hadn't have been for them, like, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And I firmly believe that, you know, you have to be your own advocate at some point. And that's coming from a person who doesn't ever ask for help. But at some point, you're going to have to be okay with asking for help.
Yeah. But I mean, I think even what you're doing on social media is almost, I mean, I don't know if it's kind of like you're asking for help. You're just, I mean, you're venting. It's another form of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, you are talking to the world, however many, and I know you got a lot of viewership for that one video, but you never know how much you're going to get. And if you, and again, it's corny, but they always say, if you can help one person, and maybe in this case, maybe even if the one person is you, it's a great thing. And I think you probably have helped more than just one. And the thing is I think a lot of times, you know, like, I've been doing this long enough, we're advocating, and, you know, you have a podcast, like, you start to, like, care about numbers and how many, you know, viewership and all. You're like, I want to help more people. And that's really what it's about. It's not even about financial gain. It's just like, I just want to help more people. And then you're like, yeah, but I'm only getting this and that many people. And you're like, wait, you get a few hundred people listen to your show, and at one point you had no friends and no one gave a shit about what you said, and you're now mad that you only have a few hundred, or whatever the number is. And then, you know, you have almost 2,000 followers on TikTok, and, you know, this and this and that. It's like, why do you care? Stop comparing yourself to everyone else. And you have these psychological wars with yourself, because you got to remember, like, you probably are helping people. There's a lot. My friend, she was a stroke survivor. She told me, she's like, just because people aren't commenting and, you know, liking and just interacting with you, doesn't mean they're not listening. And as I think about every time she told me that, is because more and more of lately, people have reached out, especially when I was going through my mental health, just chaos, just this chaotic time, that I was just like, people were just like, hey man, we're with you, we're rooting for you. And then there were some people who was like, hey, I've been watching your videos for so long, you've been helping me. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, hi. I'm not talking to myself. This is good.
Yeah. I look at my TikTok as, it's kind of like my diary. So I can kind of, like, keep track of where I'm at in my life, and then also, like, share with other people things that I'm going through, ways that, like if you're experiencing it too, things like online dating. I have like a whole bunch of videos about online dating and all the weirdness that is involved in that. And then, issues with going to doctors and all the different things that happen when I'm doing that. And then I have some things about teaching. Like, I feel like for me, it's a way of like, just being able to get my voice out there. Honestly, writing is hard sometimes. I teach writing, but it's hard, and it's physically hard for me to do because of some of my arthritic issues. And so for me, being able to record a video of myself is way easier than, putting it down on paper. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a digital footprint, and I know that it can get out there to other people, but when I was in that moment of like screaming and yelling and so upset about what happened the other day, and now I have like 25,000 people that have seen this video, and I'm absolutely stunned and amazed. And I've had so many people reach out to me, and I feel like that was the end goal, I guess, for me, was to get other people to maybe, I don't know, see me and feel like that they were there too, and that they can understand and they feel the same way that I do, and having a community of people that understand, because not everybody that you interact with in your regular everyday face-to-face life is going to fully understand what it's like to have an autoimmune disease, or to have blindness, or to have, other issues or mental health issues. Not everybody understands it. Luckily now things are so much better when it comes to mental health, but not everybody understands that, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there. And that's the one thing that I kind of go by all the time is, this is a season, and this is temporary, and it's going to get better, but I have to work really hard to make that happen. And it helps to have other people along on the journey.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. I said when going through this, I said there's one huge difference from 10 or 15, 16 years ago, where I was suicidal and I was really going through it. I was doing it alone. This time I had so many people who cared. It still felt awful, but it's why I said my anxiety was an 8 and not a 10. Is because I know what a 10 felt like. I was there at one point, and I wanted out of this world. I hated what I was, and I hated feeling like that. And this time, yeah, an 8 is still really severe. It's really awful. But I had people, like, for me, I'm a giver. I'm a person who likes to be the one that checks up on people and says, hey, I'm here for you, because it's great when you're going through something and someone just cares, even if it's just say, hey man, just letting you know I'm here. And that's who I am. But I had to like board up the windows and the doors, and I had to tell everybody, look, I don't know how long this is going to be, but I can't be that person. Like you said with the spoons, like I had very few spoons left, and I said, look, I need you guys. I'm usually the one that looks out for you, and I'm not saying that to throw that in your face. I'm just saying I literally need you, because I'm drowning here, and I cannot do this alone. And so, no, I get it. It's like I said, that's the thing. And I think the thing is, the more you open up, the more you talk about it, the more you do reach bigger audiences, you will realize how many more people are out here, how many people have your back, and so on. But as we kind of wrap this up, like, where, I don't want to say, like, where do you want to be in the next 10 years or whatever, but like with all the things that we've discussed, whether it comes to your health and dating and, just all that, like, where do you picture, like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, where do you want to go from here? Obviously you want to better your health, but like, how are you looking at life for the future?
Because I have experienced trauma, and I work with children that have experienced trauma, and adults also. I have worked with adults with disabilities, and just kind of seeing the way that it affects them. I really want to go back and finish my master's in psychology with an emphasis in trauma-informed care. I think that that's really important, especially for the population that I work with, and, you know, my own kiddos as well. And for me, I definitely want to be able to find and develop a community that, you know, they reach out to each other and they ask each other if they're okay and that kind of stuff. I want to be involved in something like that. I would like for people to know that, you know, they're not alone, just like I have definitely felt in this past year, the most alone I've ever felt in my life. And to just be a part of a community where you realize that other people are there and they understand and they know what it's like. And the majority of the people that are following me now are all people that also have chronic illnesses or chronic pain or CRPS, EDS, you know, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. All of that it's huge and it's big. And why is it happening so much? And trying to understand why that is would be a really interesting. You know, there's so many different communities. It would be nice to be able to connect all of them together.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, again, if you ever need anybody, like I have plenty of people with, like you said, CPRS and chronic regional pain syndrome, MS, lupus. Like I have a lot of friends with all different types of autoimmune and just chronic pain. And there's a lot of people out here. There's a lot. I mean, you know, sometimes it's hard because not everybody wants to speak up, but there are a bunch of us out here who are, you know, trying to do some good and trying to spread a little joy around this part. But no, don't hang up because I want to kind of wrap it up and we can finish our conversation off air. But but I do appreciate you coming on, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing. And as I told you earlier, like you got a friend, you can message me anytime. It's not just for the podcast. Like you can, the podcast is almost over. We're good. Like doesn't matter. But in end of the day, like I reached out to you more to be a friend. And like I said, you need anybody, just please reach out anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And we'll, on that note, we'll get out of here and hope you guys have a good day. See you guys.